Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Bar Business Podcast, your ultimate resource for bar owners. I'm your host, Chris Schneider, and this week we are joined by Shelby Hiltunen. She owns Hold My Crown, where she does innovative website design and story consulting. So that's really what we're going to talk about a lot today is web design. Shelby has a lot of experience in and around the bar industry, but currently does not work in the industry because she's doing web design. And I think for a lot of bar owners, one of the things that we struggle with is web design, particularly because you go online, you read a bunch of stuff, and no one agrees with each other, and everything is complex. And quite frankly, if you're worried about cocktail recipes, you're probably not worried about things like graphics and fonts and colors and those sorts of things. So Shelby has spent time, as I mentioned, she's from Indianapolis, but she spent a bunch of time in New York City, where she wrote, directed, and produced media. And now, since she's moved back, she's still in that media game, but is also expanding the web design business. That she's been doing web design, from what I understand, off and on for years. So with that, Shelby, I probably botched some of that a little bit. So fill us in a little bit on your background and just introduce yourself to the listeners.
Yeah, no, that was beautiful. And thank you for pronouncing my name right. You did it. That was great. I'm proud of you. So, yeah, I lived in New York for about 7 years and I bartended my way through acting school. And so, the most exciting media project that the bar owners will be excited about is my series called The Usual, which shows life moments of New Yorkers through the eyes of a bartender. So, that's kind of my love letter to the industry because I think once you're in the industry and you have a love for it, it kind of just doesn't go away. It's like in your heart or it's not. It's very much in my heart. So yeah, so I started producing videos and I made that web series and put it through the film festival circuit. Joined a small media company in Indianapolis called Naptown Media, where I've done a bunch of documentaries and that kind of thing, and started getting really excited and about working with small businesses and consultants, helping them build their brands and kind of walking them through the design process because it can be pretty intimidating if you don't know about it at first. And so I kind of see myself as that middleman between the technical and the people who have no idea. And I'm like, we can all be friends.
Well, and that's important because it is, like I said in the intro, there's a lot of things daunting about running a small business.
Yeah.
And branding is one of them, right? Because there are definitely rules you're supposed to follow. There are things you should do. And it's not always on top of mind, especially if you have a bar, right? Because you're worried about your kegerator broke. You're worried about your walk-in. You're worried about your liquor orders. Branding is way down that list.
Yep.
But if you don't have it, right, you're not presenting well. You're not bringing in the guests you should be. So when you look at like branding and brand packages, what things do people even need when it comes to a brand? Because I think there's a lot of folks that don't think through necessarily all the individual pieces that are actually involved in having a good brand strategy.
Yeah, sure. So I think the most important thing is that you know what your bar's personality is. Like, what is your bar? Are you an upscale cocktail bar looking to, help people find first love on their first dates? Are you a dive bar where I almost called them patients. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Where your patrons are throwing darts at the wall? Like, what is your personality? And then I personally like to make kind of a mood board of an aesthetic. So it's like, okay, if I'm let's call it we're the dive bar because that's kind of what we've talked about a little bit before. So we're the dive bar. So you've got maybe a wooden bar and you've got pint glasses stacked up and you've got the dartboards. So I'm going to put pictures of dartboards and the wooden countertop and the chalkboard font that you have that your bartender is writing every day. And I'm going to make a mood board of all of these things and then talk to you about, okay, what do you want your patrons to feel when they come into the bar? You want it to be comfortable, conversational? You want them to feel at home? You want them to, it's kind of like a cozy, shabby vibe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you take that into all of your branding. You say, okay, what's my font? We're not going to use like a beautiful, elegant cursive for this dive bar. Your patrons would be like, what the hell are you doing? You're going to find an easel, like very easy to read, some kind of font. You're going to have kind of probably a darker color scheme, maybe some like, neon, maybe you have neon signs in there. And we're bringing in some like, I don't know, maybe there's like a little bit of that in there. But once you know your personality and your kind of mood board, then you can find your your fonts, your logo, I like to call it like a brand kit. So you'll come up with kind of like phrases that go with your brand and explain like your company that anyone who works at your company can use at any given time and like represent your company in the way that you want it to be. So no one's coming up with their own version of what it is. Everyone in your company knows this is what the company is. Here's how we say it. We're saying the exact same thing. And you can find consistency that way just by knowing who you are. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And what I like about that is it's starting from the brick and mortar, right? You're not trying to invent a different anything online. You're trying to project what's in person online.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people get lost in that process. It's really, because I had never thought about starting with a mood board, but I really like that because it allows you to see what the current brand looks like, right?
Yeah.
Because if your website, to your point, if your website colors aren't reflecting what people see in store, it's going to be a little bit jarring.
Right. You want to represent who you are. We're in this kind of age of Instagram where everything's fake and you're only seeing the highlight reels and whatever it is, which is okay. You can show the highlights of your bar and you can show all of that. But if your customer looks at the pictures that you're putting up and the fonts that you're putting up, you want them to know the feel that they're walking into. Because you want a compatible customer as well, right? You maybe don't want the person who wants the upscale bar to walk into your dive bar expecting, beautiful cursive everywhere and white tablecloths, right? You want it to be accurate as to the feel that you're inviting people into.
Yeah, and it really goes to something that a couple months ago on the podcast, we had Dave Nitzel, who was talking about Dave Kaplan that owns Death & Co. in New York. And Dave Kaplan has a theory he calls I'm not sure if Dave Kaplan calls it this or Dave Nitzel named it this based on Dave Kaplan, but they call it the inception archetype. And it's the idea that your customer really, when you have a customer coming into your bar, their experience starts when they think of it. Their experience starts when they search you online. So as much as we talk about, your food program and your liquor program need to fit together, otherwise people get confused. If the first experience people have with your brand is online, and frankly, let's be honest here, Dave Kaplan and Death & Co., they've done a lot, right? they have a very great experience throughout.
Brilliant.
But by pushing that back to online, it makes sure that the guest is never confused, to your point. You're not bringing in a guest that doesn't fit your concept. And I think that's also something you don't really hear people talk about in marketing is using marketing to weed out the wrong guest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hold on. First of all, I just have to make a comment, which is you didn't know which Dave came up with it. And then you talked about the inception concept, which is hilarious. The Dave and Dave. Okay, that's my nerdy self coming out. But yeah, it's true. You don't want like the old couple on their 50th anniversary to come in to your dive bar, and you also don't want the 20-year-old kid who doesn't care about cocktails to come into Death & Co. Right? Thinking that that's for him. It's kind of saving everyone time and money and energy at the end of the day. Which your energy and your time are the most important things, especially in this business where, your bartenders are rushing. They have a lot of cocktails to make. They have 7 things in their brains at minimum at every single moment. So people are coming in questioning what it is and they don't know already when you could have saved the time from your website. Why wouldn't you do that?
Well, exactly. Now, when it comes to websites, so you come up with a brand and then you have to have a website that you put that on so that they can have that experience before they come in. There's a lot of noise out there about which platforms to use, what type of websites to have, all of that sort of stuff. And frankly, if we're just being honest, a lot of it comes from those companies advertising, right? Because people are paying for blogs, people are writing blogs. So you go online and half the stuff you see is, oh, go buy this program.
Right.
And it's not necessarily just straightforward. But when it comes to platforms, I notice the big question or the big issue a lot of people face is, do I go with something like Squarespace where it's kind of plug and play, I can move it around, it's easy to do, versus something like WordPress where, you have way more customization options, But also Squarespace, you put some pictures on the screen and move them and you're done. WordPress in general comes with some heavy coding.
Right. So I think that it depends on who the bar owner is and how much control they want to have over their website. If they want to be able to come up with a landing page on their own at midnight because they're a visionary and they're like, okay, I want to at least have this as a storyboard to send to my graphic designer so they have an idea, and Squarespace would be a really easy way to do that. If you're someone who doesn't want to deal with the technical, then Squarespace, I love Squarespace personally, and that's what I work with most of the time. I've worked with WordPress as well, and you can do a lot of really amazing customizations, but you can do that in Squarespace too. You can actually, they have places where you can insert your own code, and if there's a unique feature that they don't have, you can do that. But the thing that I think is most important is that the bar owner has control of it at any given moment. So I personally, I build everything for my clients, and then I like to, if they're willing and if they want to, I like to have a teaching session where I walk them through, hey, if you want to make these small changes, here's how you do it. If you want to look at your analytics, here's how you do it. And it's all in one place. Because a lot of people, they make the website and then they sit it and they don't think about it ever again. But our industry is fluid, right? It's always changing. What if you've changed the Tuesday night specials and you want to go on there and change it and you can't get a hold of your web designer? Because we're really busy, right? You just want to be able to go to Squarespace and change the date or change the whatever. So for me, I think it can be an amazing communication method if you have something that the bar owner or whoever is in charge of your PR or your design, they have control to change it as easily and quickly as possible as you need for your business.
Well, that's something I hadn't thought about before we started talking, but it's huge because I know there's the stereotype of the web designer that is some dude that smokes a bunch of weed and hangs out in his basement. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm sure you know people like that. I've known a number of them, but you run into the problem where I'm changing a special, I'm updating my hours. And okay, so you email them, they email you back a couple days later, and a week later, your website's updated. Well, if the guest experience is starting with that website, how many people have you given bad information to for a week? Because if your hours say you're open till 6 and I show up at 5 and you're closed, that's not good.
Yeah. And then my experience is, oh, they're not reliable immediately, right? So it's something that I think you can create a beautiful design, whatever it is you're looking for. With a platform like Squarespace, you can edit it and have it customized as much as you want, but you can also, use it as a communication method. It can be a back and forth. It doesn't have to be something you just set and leave. It can be a business tool. And you can look into your analytics and your marketing, and you can set up A/B testing for advertisements that you're using, and you can track that and track your emails. And it really is more of a marketing and analytical tool than just the design. The design is where it starts, and that needs to be consistent with who you are in storytelling and all of this. But then the back end, right? Because at the end of the day, you're trying to run a bar and you still have to pay for those bar stools, and you have to pay for the new rags, and you have to pay. I hope everyone, by the way, is paying for that padding stuff that the bartenders have to step on all the time so they're not killing their backs and their feet. You have to pay for things like that. So you want to be able to track your website traffic in that way.
And I definitely want to get into the analytics here a little bit in a second. But before we get there, one of the big arguments you see about websites is, should I have a single page landing page or should I have a multiple page website? And I think, and you may or may not agree with me, I think both can work, but they're different strategies and have different potential views by the people looking at them. And potentially they take them a different way. So what is your thought process on that?
Well, actually, can I just ask you first, because I'm really curious, which one do you prefer?
I think that the single pages are really good to throw up. Like if you're opening and you're trying to get something done, a single page is great. But I think especially with bars and restaurants that do more complex things, like if you have private events, things of that nature, you probably need multiple pages just to be able to guide your person to the right spot.
I completely agree. If there's a special that you have and you want a landing page for it, you can have that. You can have a space that is, just for current events. You can have a space that is just cocktails. You have a space that's just your food menu. And while you're knowing, I keep talking about knowing your bar's personality. Well, it's the same thing with your website and showing that your chef is going to be, hopefully they're all working together as a cohesive unit, but what's the personality of your menu? It's different from your cocktail menu. Is it different from your events? Because I'm definitely working with a different person at events than I am if I'm just walking in and going to the bar. So what's that
Right.
experience like, and how do you paint the picture of what the expectation should be for your client? And why wouldn't you, to me, why wouldn't you have multiple pages to show everything that you have? It's a nuanced business, and I understand that there is like something to the intuitive, cohesive movement of going through one page and it telling you kind of an intuitive story. But you can do that on every page with every asset that your business has. So why wouldn't you do that?
And it to your point, just gives you more space to illustrate. Now, along those lines, because you brought up menus, so a question there, because I see a lot of bars and restaurants out there that just throw up a PDF, and it works. I think sometimes it can come off a little lazy. From a design perspective, is that the way to go, or is it better to, type out each one within a website? How do you look at menus and how they present on websites?
Well, it's what's your bar personality? Are you the lazy bar personality, or do you want that to be kind of your vibe? If that's your vibe, great. If you are a more upscale restaurant, then why aren't you putting the resources into every single aspect of your guest experience? So it just depends on how you serve your customer. Are you putting in that extra bit of effort? Are your servers coming to the tables in bow ties? Then you should probably have some beautiful designs on that website, on that menu, and it should be this colorful, beautiful experience because I'm paying for the experience. So it's all about what is the customer experience that you want to give. And then that can define how much effort you put into it.
That makes perfect sense. And along those lines, because I know it's something that can be an issue with PDF menus, but also is just something that sometimes gets forgotten about, even though it shouldn't. Are you a fan of doing separate design for a mobile site versus a desktop site?
So it's a whole thing converting a site from desktop to mobile. I think it's possible to, so I don't think that it's possible to have the same design like exactly, because it's just not going to transfer. You're not going to be able to see everything on your phone that you will the desktop, but should be most of these websites, like when I'm designing in Squarespace, I see the display of what it would look like on a computer, and then I see what it would look like on a phone. And you do need to make sure that the experience, no matter what they're looking at, is intuitive for them, right? You want to make it as easy as possible for the customer to, as soon as possible, know who you are, know what they're getting, know what they're buying, and then immediately know how to buy it, right? Make it as easy as humanly possible. So it should all be very easy for them. I don't know if I answered that question, but it should all be consistent.
Right. And it's, and you did answer the question. That's I think part of what this conversation is pointing out too is that when it comes to design, right, there are best practices. There are a lot of ways you can do things, but you're never really right or wrong as long as your customer gets what they need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about knowing your customer. And at the end of the day, we're selling, right? You come back to this all the time, is you're selling hospitality, you're selling connection, you're selling a human moment. So what moment are you selling, right? And then everything you do should cater to that moment you're selling. And you should be very specific about that as a bar owner. You need to know, and then center your whole world around it and make it happen. And that'll sell. That'll go over and over and over again.
One of the other things that I hear a lot of people discuss when it comes to web design, and it's using a newspaper term actually, but above the fold, right? So when you open a website, where with a newspaper right above the fold would obviously be what you see when you pull it out of the newspaper machines that I don't even know exist anymore. Above the fold on a website being when you land there, exactly what you see on your screen before anybody scrolls or does anything else. People will put varying ideas out about how much should be there, right? You hear some people say put a bunch of information there. You have some people that will say put very little. Where is kind of that right balance? if you will, and what are good elements to include in that top section of the website when people first land on your page?
Sure. So the first look is always a feeling, right?
Mhm.
Like, do you believe in love at first sight? Some people do, some people don't. But it's that thought of you look and you immediately know exactly what it is. This resonates with my soul. This resonates with my tummy. This does not. If that first look above the fold does not show that the feel of your bar immediately, then you really, really have a problem. And it can be a picture, it can be a video, it can be, just a phrase, your catchphrase and your logo. It can be whatever it is, but does it give your customer the feel of when they walk into your bar for the first time? Can they feel it immediately? Great, you've done well. Can they not feel it? Maybe you have some work to do. And it's not about the words, it's about the feel. They'll give you their own words. You can give them the words later,
Mhm.
but how do you give them that feeling? And that's where all the mood board work and the like finding the right fonts, finding the right colors, finding the right like logo with the right feel for you. That's where all of that kind of comes together.
Sure, and one thing you mentioned there was videos. I know before we started recording this episode, you and I were talking a bit about videos and just how important it can be to have videos on a website because it actually makes it more impactful. It makes it work better as a marketing tool. So,
Yeah. It's amazing. Can I just give some of the numbers to your
absolutely.
listeners? So because this kind of blew both of our minds beforehand. Okay, so this is according to the beautiful Google. Video content can increase organic traffic to landing pages by 157%. 157%, that's insane. It can increase brand recall by 95% and conversion rates by 80%. The numbers kind of go on and on and on, but the numbers are insane about how much video can help draw customers to your site.
So obviously video is something you being in production you're very familiar with, but I feel like a lot of bar owners, a lot of bar managers are a little bit afraid of.
Yeah.
And there's definitely two sides to that. One of them being just, do I actually want to be on video? Because until you do it for a while, it's kind of terrifying. Like even I know from my podcasting, it was not comfortable the first time. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna let thousands of people around the world listen to what I have to say and realize if I'm an idiot or not. And that's kind of the fear people have. But then on the other side of it, I feel like a lot of people get held up in the perfect being the enemy of the good sometimes with production quality. And so where does the production quality on video matter? Where does it not matter? And how do you get past kind of that fear that most people that are not in production have about making a video and being in a video?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, first of all, a bar owner might never have to actually be on camera to have all of their stuff sell, right? Like, I've worked at bars that have incredible marketing practices, and no one would ever know their bar owner from Adam, right? Which is really unfortunate because they're really amazing people. But you don't have to actually show your face if you don't want to. It's how do you capture the feel of your restaurant? How do you capture the feel of the space and what your customer experience is, right? I think people get intimidated because they think it can cost a lot of money. They think that it can just be these like shorts, like kind of short things, and they don't see the value in it. But I think this goes back to what's your bar personality and how do you show that through video, right? If, like we were just talking before, if you are the local bar owner of the dive bar and you want to just do videos of you talking out back, saying funny jokes or in the bar bathroom or which I actually don't recommend putting a camera, or, you behind the bar making jokes and that's the personality of your bar, great. If you're, a Death and Co. or one of those beautiful upscale, I mean, they don't need me to tell them anything, but maybe they show a beautiful video of a cocktail being made. There are a ton of those online with probably a dark backdrop because that's their vibe and lots of probably like smoke effects and this kind of thing, right? You're going to invest more because they are investing that in their cocktails. Whatever that percentage you're investing in your cocktails and the work that you do and the quality you provide to your customer, you should put that into your video.
And so along those lines, video is something you should always have on your website. And I know that there are a lot of other elements on websites that we see, whether that's accordions. I know right now are pretty hot, where you hit the plus arrow and it expands
Yeah.
on the track. And then you have things like parallax scrolling, where the picture would stay and the text and stuff would scroll in front of it. That was really hot there for what, a year or two, and kind of became the thing. And then it is now definitely not a thing anymore. So what elements within websites are actually working now? And what are some things that are people maybe still doing that don't work?
Oh, that's great. Honestly, I think people are using way more video, picture,
Mhm.
and brand cohesive strategies to ensure that their brand kind of is solid, right? When you go to the site, it looks, from the second you're on it, this is who they are and it's consistent all the way through. I think when you get to sites that are kind of gray and they have small fonts that you can't really read, or kind of like the old 90s fonts that people use all the time, honestly, a lot of old WordPress sites, and you're kind of like, oh my gosh, how I can't
Mhm.
even read this. What is it? It's confusing. I think what works is making it brand consistent and easy for your customer to use. Make it very obvious, where's the menu? Where can I order takeout? Where can I make my reservation? Where is this? What's the field? Right? Make it as easy as humanly possible with a solid brand. And I think things like the scrolling, right? Like, I personally have never been a fan of the parallax because and this is just me, it gives me motion sickness. I don't love it. That's just me personally. But like the accordions, that's great because, right, your customer can see and answer the questions for themselves of what exactly do they want to see, and they don't have to see what they don't. They're able to customize the experience for themselves and know that you've already thought of these questions for them. So I think as long as you're being thoughtful to your customer and consistent in your brand and making things as easy as possible, then you're doing a good job.
Great. So one of the things you mentioned there was call to action. And if you look anywhere online, they say, okay, all good websites, you need to have strong calls to action throughout. Well, if you're selling web design services, it's pretty easy. Contact me, book an appointment. Do you want the service? If you're me and you're selling consulting, same thing, right? Book an appointment. That's my call to action everywhere, is just book an appointment. Let me talk to you. If you're a Well, they're not booking a Zoom meeting with you. They're not necessarily booking a reservation, because maybe you don't take reservations. So what can you use, or what types of calls to action can work for businesses that kind of the traditional calls to action don't work for?
Ooh, that's a good question. So it's like you're talking about a place that might not take reservations or might not whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say, what action do you want them to take? Figure out when you are building your website and you're picturing your customers looking at it, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to call? Do you want them to just walk in? Do you want them to order takeout? What do you want them to do? And then tell them in short of phrase as possible how to do it, right? If you want them to walk in and see you tonight, say, walk in and see us tonight. If you want them to come on Sunday, say, come see our bartenders, Sam, on Sunday. Just be very clear about what you want and guide them to it.
Well, I think that's in some ways counterintuitive to what a lot of people read online, because everyone wants everything you read, call to action leads to a sales funnel, blah, blah, blah. Obviously that doesn't work in bars, but come see us is a great call to action, even though there's no further action to take on a website for that.
Right.
Right. It's not sales funnels. We're not tracking data. We're not doing any of that. It's just come see us, and then hopefully they come in. But
Or get to know us more, and it can be
yeah.
pointed towards your socials,
Mm-hmm.
see what we're
But I
up to
think
tonight. Watch our story. Get them
I just
working
think
on
that
another platform.
bars need permission to be able to do that, right? Because so much of what you read says don't do that, but at the same time, it makes sense in the bar business to say, come see us.
Yeah. And it does
Now
become kind
with
of I
that,
think people get scared because it becomes a full-time job if they think that they have to be posting all the time, or they think that they
Mhm.
have to constantly be producing content, and they're like, I'm not a content maker, I'm a bar owner. I'm not a content maker, I'm a bartender. Like, I can't be making that while I'm pouring this beer, right? So I also think that in that sphere of things, I think that you can spend a day once every 3 months creating your content that you need to put up there, right? when you're planning out your deals for your bar for the next 3 months or whatever it is, hire your graphic designer and say, I need graphics to post 3 times a week about this special, whatever it is. Just do it once every 3 months and have it stockpiled and scheduled. That's all you have to do.
And that is so much easier when you do it in bulk.
Yeah, and then
Because
you're
I
not.
know
Yeah.
it's just content creation is, it can be enjoyable, but it can also just be a, oh my God, I have to produce this today. It's definitely a different skill than running a bar.
Yeah, and you don't want to be thinking about it every day. It becomes, we call it Pac-Man, and it's like the second I produce one thing, Pac-Man comes and it's already posted, so I need another. And that's the place you don't want to be. You need to know for yourself and plan ahead so that you can have all of that kind of in store and know, okay, I'm going to plan this and I can create these things. And it doesn't even have to be an insane piece of content. It can just be a graphic design, it can be like a picture of one of your drinks. It can be whatever it is that works for your bar, but just have it, create it, and schedule it.
Well, I think another thing too, when it comes to content creation for bars, and I mean, this is just kind of the way it works. Most people that went into acting work in bars. And so it's unusual almost to have a bar that you don't have someone there that understands storytelling and acting and all those sorts of things that can help you.
Yes, but pay them to do it. Pay
Well,
your
yeah.
bartender to be your storyteller. Say, hey, I really love the work you're doing as a bartender. I respect it. I'm going to ask if I can pay you to use your other skills to do this since you already know my bar so well. Help me tell this story. What story would you tell? And you can pay your bartenders to be your storytellers. But you
Mhm.
should definitely be paying them also for being your storyteller or being your salesperson. Like if they're doing a separate job, pay them for that. Because I can't tell you how many jobs people ask bartenders to do on just the bartender salary. You
Mhm.
gotta pay them for every box they're doing it, please.
Well, and just as kind of aside, I frequent Reddit more than I should. And I was on one of the bar owner or restaurant owner Reddits, and somebody was on there talking about like, how do I make my staff post to social media every day? Well,
Mm,
they're not going to, right? Like to your point, if you're making them do something beyond their job, pay them for doing it.
yeah,
Because at the end, paying a bartender a couple $100 a month to make your content that understands content creation, your content's going to be way
incredible.
better than paying a couple $100 a month to somebody in India that just forces it through algorithms.
Absolutely. It's, you know what, the other thing they don't understand is if that bartender is an actor, who an actor is, their face, their voice, all of that is their product. So you're
Mm-hmm.
asking them to use their most valuable product, which I don't know how you value it, but if that is their main goal in life and you're not valuing it, then maybe you need to think about your respect for other people. But if you are using their product for your business, pay them for it. And if you do that and you respect them for that and allow them to tell your stories, they're going to be a much happier bartender, and that's going to increase
Mm-hmm.
your culture and your customer experience and all of that. Like all in one. It's a win for everyone. And you're going to have more money in your pocket even after paying them whatever you pay them.
And on a completely now kind of out of left field side note, if you have people, because most people don't realize this, but if you have people that are actors that also bartend for you, they cannot, and they're in the union, they can't act without getting paid.
Right.
Right? They literally cannot make a video for you, even of them making a cocktail, without getting their day rate because of the union rules.
Yep. And they might not be able to do it, period, based on
Mm-hmm.
the union rules. Because if it's not a union, if they're not getting, yeah, there are a lot of rules that go into it because they like to treat their employees well.
Yeah, well, and it's just I've been around some video production folks over the years, and it's the movie industry and acting as an industry and the way the unions work and all that. It's what you get from 100 years of serious, complex lawyers arguing. And
It's
that is
true.
the movie industry. It's 100 years of lawyers making shit up and arguing with each other.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. I love that.
But it does come into play if you're trying to use people on your staff that are also actors to produce content.
Yeah, and they can produce the content without being on screen
Mm-hmm.
themselves. But if you're expecting them to create content, then pay them for it, and they'll probably do a really great job. There's most talented people in the world have bartended at one point, I think, most of the time. At one point in time, or are still bartending, the most amazing storytellers, the most amazing artists. Like you probably have the most amazing talent at your bar.
Mm-hmm. Because like I said, we started into this conversation, I don't think you can separate actors and hospitality.
No,
Like that is just it's part of the experience. I feel like
no,
on
and
both
we're
sides.
actors are people. Like we love
Mm-hmm.
people. We love observation. Like we love being around people. I think that I've seen in my experience, I've had people want to kind of overstep the employee whatever the employee contract is, right? Like I'm hired to be a bartender. I'm not hired to be the the designer and
Right.
your beverage director and your whatever, right? Like just know what you're asking people and show them that you value it.
Now, because we're kind of talking about short form video and content creation here, there is that argument, does quality matter? And we kind of got into that. But what can a lot of bar owners, they have their iPhone, they're recording some stuff. Maybe if they're lucky, they have a tripod to put their phone on and a ring light. But what are some simple things that folks can do to elevate the level of production that isn't going to break the bank, that doesn't really require going out and spending $500 on different pieces of equipment and new lights and all that sort of stuff?
Sure. So some really simple things. Lighting can absolutely change the quality of everything. If you get and a ring light is actually a great example. If you get a ring light, or you get, most bar owners are probably going to just want the ring light, and you can use it for multiple things, right? You can use that ring light to light the drink while you're shooting it. But lighting is really important. Just like it's important when your customers are on their date and you want to be a little bit dark so everyone looks a little bit cuter. You want the lighting for your content to be as good as humanly possible. So lighting, having your camera on the highest quality setting. So if you can have a 4K camera, you can have a 180 camera. That's great. You want to keep your filter consistent through all of them. So I would recommend to everyone, uh, whatever you're using for your like to have a brand filter as part of your brand kit, right? And use it across all of your videos. So if you're a dive bar, you might have like a warmer filter that you put on everything and just give it that consistent look. Use color contrast, use portrait mode. There are a million tips and tricks that you can use, and even just go on YouTube and watch half an hour and just then watch videos and just literally Google that, and you're going to find a million tips. But at the end of the day, consistency is key. So whatever you do it for all of them, because if you look inconsistent, then you're not consistent for your customer, and that's where people don't trust you. They're going to trust you if you're consistent, even if it's not the best, right? But stay consistent.
Yeah, that is definitely so important. And one of the things, because we've kind of talked about the website and how you produce that, we talked about video a little bit, how you produce that. But one of the big things here is all of this is just a way to tell a story. And that story also has to be consistent. And let's be honest here, most bar owners, most bar managers are not writers. Right. And a lot of this is whether you're writing a loosely scripting out something for a video or you're writing copy for the website, you have to have in that also a consistent voice. But how do you find a writing voice? And then B, how do you make sure that you're giving folks enough, but not too much? Because I feel like people either summarize things to the point where you have no clue what they're saying, or just word vomit, 5,000 words that 4,000 of them I don't need to read.
Yeah. Well, that's, it's a whole industry. Hire a copywriter. Walk through your brand with them, tell them your brand personality, tell them your ideal customer. And a good copywriter is going to help you tell your story in a unique way in as few words as possible. How can I explain exactly who you are and as viewers as possible. And then your designer is going to be able to help show that through graphics as well. And that's part of the mood board. And that's part of knowing your aesthetic, right? Like, what is the aesthetic, personality, and voice of your brand? And then bring in copywriters. And if you can't, honestly, go on ChatGPT, tell GPT your brand, voice, name, whatever it is. I've never used that as a final product. It's just not there yet, but it'll give you some inspiration and it'll help you. And then look at your competitors. What are your competitors doing, and how are they using it? And how can you kind of use inspiration from them? And what do you like that they're doing? What do you not like that they're doing? Where can you find inspiration to be your best self? But it's all unique to each bar. There's no one answer for each bar. It's like someone who's trying to work their way through life and they don't know who they are. If you don't know who you are, I can't help you. If you know who you are, then I'm going to help you tell your story all day, every day. We're going to make it.
I love that. I love that you have to know who you are, because that is something that so many businesses struggle with, right? Because that's everything we've talked about comes down to that one statement. And it's not easy for everybody to see that picture.
Yeah. And if you don't know who you are, hire someone like me, walk me through your whole business, introduce me to your staff, let me see what you're selling, let me see what your goals are, and I'll tell you. There are people out there who can tell you. We are Italian women with big attitudes, and we'll tell you exactly who you are.
I believe it. Now, along those lines, just one other question when it comes specifically to the copywriting side of things. There is a lot about tenses and things, and not to get overly into grammar, because I know that's not something most people in bar industry like to discuss either, is grammar. But things like passive voice can be bad. From my understanding, you have to watch sentence construction. What are some things kind of in that realm of grammar that you see where people mess up a lot?
That's such a great question. The biggest thing, and this actually comes from my producing partner who was in marketing for 35 years, and I've been lucky enough to take some gems from him. The biggest thing is most people on their sites or in their copywriting, they're talking about themselves only, when you want to be talking to the customer. You're talking either to the customer or about the customer. What is the experience that I, as a customer, am going to have going to your bar? Because I'm reading your website and I want to learn about you, but if there's about you section, I'll learn the nitty gritty of you. But what am I getting as a customer? It's actually about me, right? The whole bar experience is actually about the customer. So why aren't you gearing your copy to them? That's the biggest thing. So in terms of tenses, you're a 35-year-old actress meeting a director for the first time. We're this bar, this beautiful cocktail bar that's upscale, that's not going to break your bank and make you look like you know New York like the Mercury. Whatever it is, right? Like a specific thing. And that would be an advertisement you send to a very specific, right, profile person, right? And you can do that. But you see how it's making it about her, about how are you fixing your customer's problem?
Right.
Talk to your customer.
And I think that's a great overall point, just because so many people struggle with essentially, right? A lot of it's just the ability to write in second person, right? Talking about you rather than talking about me. It's not about what I do, it's about what you want.
It's tough. Can I put you on the spot for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you just give me like a sentence about like what a podcast guest experience would be on your podcast with you? So like, tell me about your podcast with this voice.
Being on my podcast is a great way for you to be able to reach bar owners and share your experience in a way that provides value to the bar owner community and allows people to become more educated and exposed to different aspects of the bar business and some more technical aspects than often people talk about.
Okay. So your first word should be you.
Yeah.
Because then immediately I'm like, oh, me what? I'm paying attention. You are going to share your experiences, your values, and your technical expertise to bar owners to teach them about how they can better their business. in that way, and you can use way more of the words. I didn't write it all down. You're making it about, oh my gosh, it's me. You're saying you first, you, okay. You're going to share your experiences. I get to talk about me. Yes, please. You're going to add the value that you add, your technical expertise. I get to talk about all the things I'm good at and show off in front of a community that means a lot to me. That's what you're telling them, right? So instead of on my podcast, it's you are going to get to share your expertise on blah, 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 blah. So that's kind of, I think, what a lot of people lose on it, right? Because you do want them to know who you are, and they do need to know who they're talking to and what it's about. But the very first thing they really know and want to hear, right? Like everyone's favorite word is their own name, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the lips of the person who loves them. Like so how do you make it as much about them as possible?
Well, it also seems like I have new copy now when I reach out to podcast guys.
Got you. There you go. I
you
got
know,
you.
I mean, it's always grab what you can steal, right?
Absolutely. I'm here for you.
Well, with that, we're kind of towards the end of our time. So I know we've covered a lot, but is there anything else that we have not discussed over about the last 15 minutes that you think it's really important for the listeners and bar owners to know when it comes to their marketing and brand strategy and all of that?
Yeah, I think that you need to know yourself. You need to know your bar. You need to know your bar personality, and you need to be consistent. And I think as long as you do that and you treat your people well and see the value in your own people, I think that's a really beautiful place to start.
Not only is it a beautiful place to start, it's an achievable place to start.
Yes.
Right? You've taken all this scary stuff and made it not scary, which is really
it's very doable, and it's very human. I think it's easy to, when we don't know something, we kind of put it on a pedestal, or we put it like it's out of our reach. Oh my gosh, I can never do that. Well, other human beings are doing it. They're just other humans. You can do it too. You just have to dig deep and get that confidence. You've started a bar. You can do this. Are you kidding me?
That is true. It's almost nothing is as hard as starting a bar.
Oh my gosh.
In and of itself.
Yeah, I was listening. I listened to one of your other episodes, and it was the mental health episode, which I just think is absolutely incredible and so ridiculously important. But he said that being a bartender is like the 13th most dangerous job. And I was like, my God, that made me want to scream from the rooftops. I told you I'm a badass. Survived being a bartender in New York for 7 years. Like, don't mess with me. So it truly, I think it's also finding the right people to work with. Is the right person to work with your bartender? Can they help you do it? Do you need to hire a copywriter? Do you need to hire a graphic designer? And invest in yourself, It's like investing in your health as a person is investing in, are you investing in the gym? Great. Invest in your website.
I have to say, thank you so much for being here, because this has been a great conversation and really nice to get viewpoints on websites from someone that's not, in restaurants and bars, because it's hard to see what's going on outside the industry when we all have our heads down in the industry. And I'm sure some folks have heard what you have said and probably want to get in touch with you. So what is the best way for people to contact you?
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I absolutely love your podcast, and it's truly incredible to be on here. So thank you. And thank you for all your time. The best way to get a hold of me, my website is holdmycrownproductions.com, and you can get a hold of me through there, or shelby@naptownmedia.com is my email address. You can see if you're interested in the bar series that I wrote, it's theusualseries.com. But all my information's there, and yeah, I would love to work with bar owners. Oh my gosh, I would love it.
Well, we will link all of that in the show notes. So if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, or if you're on YouTube, it'll all be in the show notes below, so you can go find the links to get a hold of Shelby. But with that, that's going to about wrap us up for today. So if you guys enjoyed today's episode, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a review. If you want to gain more insights on the bar industry and talk with other bar owners, make sure you join our Bar Business Nation Facebook group, where we're just building a community and really able to have some powerful conversations there, because we have all bar owners and bar managers, and everyone knows what's going on and share tips and tricks, because sometimes what people are doing in New York versus what people are doing, say, where Shelby and I am, or in Indiana, are worlds apart, and we can all learn from each other. And with that, everybody, I hope you have a great day, and we will talk again later.